people have encountered in the swamps. We'll be seeing some horrifying phenomenon that swallowed trees whole, and a prehistoric-looking animal that you wouldn't want to meet. But first, let's get to know these figures that shocked the residents of Sydney, France. Number 7. Homo algus. Picture this. It's the year 2012, and you're out walking in the swamps of the nature reserve in Sydney, France. You're having a lovely day, and everything's going well until you see them. 2 creatures that look like they're emerged from the mud, positioned at the edge of the coastal path. These creepy half-human, half-vegetal figures with slenderly long limbs are still, as if frozen in time, as if simply observing the passers-by. The figures stayed for several weeks, arousing surprise and fascination, but then one day, they suddenly disappeared. Just as people thought that was the last they'd seen of those creepy creatures, they reappeared in 2017, but they weren't alone. They brought 6 more friends. What were those figures anyway, you might ask, and where did they come from? Well, rather than supernatural, those so-called swamp creatures had a more rational origin. Those were actually works of art made by French sculptor and artist Sophie Prestigiacomo to show the sometimes complicated relationship between man and nature. Each figure is made of iron, molded into shapes, and then covered with a combination of mud and algae. Sophie spent a lot of time in the nature reserve since she lived nearby. That was where she got the idea to use a material that has never been used in the art industry before: algae. Called Homo algus, there were only 2 of them at first. However, due to the interest of the curator of the nature reserve and to a crowdfunding campaign, the swamp currently has 10 of these sculptures. Blending in with the scenery, the longer these figures are left in nature, the more they become one with it. Their skin cracks and moss creeps onto them, giving them a more disturbing look. Sophie Prestigiacomo occasionally does restoration work on them. However, she doesn't plan on doing so for long. Sooner or later, the sculptures will finally succumb to nature and be gone forever. Number 6. Anacondas. Snakes are definitely one of the things that you would not want to encounter in swamps, or any other place in the world, as you would most definitely not want to be caught near a gigantic anaconda, which is considered to be one of the world's largest snakes. So, what in the world were these fishermen thinking when they decided to just randomly poke an anaconda peacefully resting and hidden with a wooden oar? You heard that right, folks. A group of fishermen tried several times to disturb the huge beast, and as expected, it reacted and decided to swim away. Just as it starts to swim away, you could see the size of the snake, which later was said to be around 17 feet. However, that wasn't all. Part of the huge beast's stomach was bulging, and it clearly just had its meal. Any sane person would leave the giant reptile alone and not provoke it any further. I, for one, would surely be running in terror at first sight of it. Thankfully for them, the anaconda wasn't in the mood to fight back. Although not venomous, these snakes have a painfully tight grip and could easily constrict a human being, suffocating and crushing them to death. Number 5. Alligators. Lurking under the murky waters of swamps, these massive reptiles are ones you would not want to have an encounter with. One look at these menacing predators would immediately make you go, nope, and leave the place. Alligators have armored bodies with a muscular, flat tail. American alligators are said to be one of the largest and can grow up to 15 feet long and weigh over 1,000 pounds. Now, that is a scary sight to see. They lurk underwater, waiting for the perfect chance to strike. The thing about gators is that you would never know there's one nearby unless you really looked for them, as they tend to be really quiet when unbothered. When it's time to hunt, alligators are no picky eaters. They will devour anything that they can get their jaws on, as long as they can handle it. Humans are rarely on that list, though, as gators have a natural fear of humans and will quickly retreat when approached. However, you should never test their patience. Alligators, when provoked, are pretty fast runners. Don't believe me? Take a look at this video right here. Alligators can run up to 35 miles an hour for short distances on land. So if you had the misconception that they're slow, well, you're in for a surprise when you meet one. Number 4. Bear Creek Dolls. Dolls already have this creepy stigma attached to them because of all the horror stories and movies about them. You find them in places where they shouldn't be, and you already get this unsettling feeling. So, imagine what the locals would have felt when a total of 21 dolls were mysteriously found in an Alabama swamp. And not just any regular doll, but porcelain dolls being placed on bamboo stakes. Yikes! Found in the waters of Bear Creek Swamp, Autauga County Sheriff's deputies had to travel by canoe in order to retrieve the dolls. Upon closer inspection, the dolls' faces were painted white, and most of them looked antique. Some of them were even missing their heads. If that isn't creepy, then I don't know what is. Ugh. Chief Deputy Joe Sittinger said that he thought the dolls could have simply been a Halloween prank when he first saw them when he was driving through the swamps weeks ago. However, when people were concerned on social media, they decided to investigate. Sittinger admits that the dolls look scary. You could see them from the road. We figured it was best to get them up, Sittinger said. Number 3. Tree Swallower. Most of the time, it takes a lot of effort to get rid of a fully grown tree. You need some tools and a lot of effort exerted to do so, and it takes even more energy to get rid of a group of trees. So imagine everyone's surprise and horror when this 2013 video of a clump of trees slowly being swallowed by the earth itself went viral. Now that is horrifying. Located in the swampy land near Bayou Corn in the Grand Bayou, a parish official had shot this video. You might be wondering as to what exactly is causing this phenomenon. Well, the answer doesn't make it less terrifying. In fact, it makes it a whole lot worse. The sinkhole had been growing for a while, but only gained national attention once it was big enough to engulf a whole grove of trees. Not only has the sinkhole devoured the land and multiple trees, but it has also uprooted the lives of the people living in Bayou Corn. Local residents had to be evacuated, and they weren't allowed back in for years. It was only in 2016 that they were allowed to go back, 3 years after the event happened. What was once a community of over 300 people, only around a dozen or so families continued their lives in the bayou. The sinkhole, which is now called the Bayou Corn Sinkhole, is approximately 37 acres wide and at least 750 feet deep. It's so big, you can even see it on Google Maps. Number 2. Alligator snapping turtles. When people hear the word turtles, normally they think of the cute, scaly creatures that thrive in the ocean. With bumpy flippers and a somewhat smooth shell, these fellows are generally harmless. So, you might be thinking that most, if not all, turtles are like that. Well, think again, because there's one turtle that you surely would not want to meet. One look at it and you'd go, the heck is that? With a spiked shell, beak-like jaws, and thick, scaled tail, this prehistoric-looking reptile is known to be the dinosaur of the turtle world. This is the alligator snapping turtle, or also called the alligator snapper. Even its name doesn't sound friendly or cute at all. Alligator snappers are the largest freshwater turtle in North America and can reach lengths of 29 inches and weigh around 249 pounds. These turtles can be found in rivers, lakes, and you guessed it, swamps. Alligator snappers spend most of their time in the water, and they can stay submerged for 40 to 50 minutes before needing air. Not only do these turtles look outright terrifying, they're also scary hunters, employing a unique natural lure during its hunt. In order to attract unsuspecting prey, the alligator snapper lays motionless on the bottom and opens its jaws to reveal what looks like a delicious, bright red wriggling worm. But make no mistake, that isn't a worm that you would want to go near to. It's actually part of the turtle's tongue, and any fish that swims near gets surprised by a powerful bite. Now, we may not be fish, but we still get terrified by this scary reptile. With jaws like those, you certainly would not want to be the one getting bitten. Their bite is so strong that it can reach up to a force of 1,000 pounds and bite a person's finger off. Although they're not prone to biting humans, it can still happen when they're provoked. So, whenever you see one of these in the wild, just make sure to stay on its good side. Number 1. Swamp Ghost. In 1972, in the Agayambo Swamp, the remains of a partially submerged aircraft were spotted from a helicopter by Australian soldiers. Landing on top of one of the wings, they investigated the said aircraft and found that it was eerily untouched. There were machine guns inside, all fully loaded. In the cabin, they found a thermos filled with what used to be coffee. There were even claims that they found even ashtrays with cigarette butts, all untouched and left exactly how it was before it crashed. Because of this, it earned the nickname Swamp Ghost. No one knew where this plane came from or how it even got there. For years, no one knew the origins of the said aircraft. For years, pilots have used the wreck as a navigational reference point, and there were times when the grass around it would grow at around 12 feet high, engulfing the unknown aircraft, rendering it invisible from the sky. This made its nickname even more appropriate. However, in 2003, a young man named Justin Talon first cleared away the grass covering the Swamp Ghost. It was only then that revealed the mysterious aircraft's origins. Talon said that he saw the markings of the US Army Air Forces. It was later learned that the Swamp Ghost was a Boeing B-17E Flying Fortress, piloted by Captain Frederick C. Eaton Jr. Their plane had ditched in the swamp during the Second World War after an attack on ships at Japanese-occupied New Britain. The plane was intercepted as it was flying over Rabaul and had run out of fuel. Having no choice, they crash-landed into the swamp near the north coast of New Guinea. Amazingly, all the crew had survived the landing and trekked out. As of February 2022, the aircraft had long been retired and is now in display in Hangar 79 on Ford Island, undergoing restoration.